Dark corridors of the mansion. The girl hurriedly runs into the room calling for her master. But alas, Diane Redford passed away. The cause of death was occulisia poison and profuse bleeding. Harsh. You failed to protect the target. Game over pauses the action. Rin is angry. This is already an attempt to beat the game. But her ward character is just like the sunfish, with the same level of resistance and survival. This virtual game is very popular among young girls of the modern generation. It's called Young Masters of Monster Mansion. Raising an Angel. In it you need to choose an angelic-looking young man who lives in a cursed mansion. The goal of the game is to protect him from monsters and evil spirits. He must not only live to adulthood, but also become an outstanding man. Then the game will be completed. The visuals and detail of the game make it very realistic. She can suck in even a seasoned player, which is what happened with Rin. Players can choose not only a ward but also a field of activity. There are more than 30 types of them in the game. Maid, teacher, relative, etc. Rin was suited to the role of a mansion maid. But of the 7 young gentlemen, she liked the fair-haired Diane Redford best. His good looks and silvery hair made him overlook a special note. Caution, dies easily. Realizing that he was worthy of the title impenetrable, Rin still did not give up. Receiving her next salary, she again joined the game. But several years have passed and it has not been possible to pass it. She seriously considered abandoning this idea. But how can we leave Diane Redford? In another moment of doubt, Rin decided to restart the game again. At that same moment, an unknown force pulled her somewhere. She got into the game. Before her was the first episode of the game. But now Rin was a teacher, not a servant. She decided that there was a bug in the game and said, "Log out." Nothing has changed. She was still in the game. Diane Redford noted that she has some kind of northern surname, Logout. Just like before, he chided Rin for being late. The first episode unfolded as before. She remembered it because she had already played this game 44 times. One more moment and one of the maids should turn into a monster. If the game continues despite her attempts to quit, then she needs to play. And so it happened. Rin only had time to shout at Dion to dodge. She instantly rushed at the monster to save the master. To save her little master, Rin had to resort to violence. She deftly grabbed the swords from the wall and instantly dealt with the monster. But everything was much more real than usual. The corpse was not covered with flowers. The young master saw all this and was clearly frightened. In the game, usually the blood quickly disappeared, and black flowers grew on the monster's corpse, and red flowers on the human corpse. They completely covered the body. Now Rin stood spattered with blood in front of the monster's corpse, and felt all these not very pleasant smells. She was at a loss. The episode had to change, but it continued and was quite realistic, which made me think that this was real and not a game. I had to move to the guest room while the maids cleaned up the evidence of the murder. It was awkward. The young master was clearly frightened. There were no instructions on how to proceed further in the game. Rin asked to bring a vase of water and tea. She finally wiped the blood from her face. Now we could try to calm Diane down and try to win him over again. He was clearly a little afraid of her. But as soon as Rin decided to propose acquaintance again, they entered the room. It was another young master of the mansion, Angel from room num 2. It was Manuel, the most popular character in the game. It simply reeked of luxury and grace. Rin often regretted not choosing him. He greeted everyone and gallantly asked about the new teacher. Manuel heard what happened in the 7th room, and he was interested in Rin. He approached her and asked her name. Diane reacted aggressively. He believed that Manuel had no need to get acquainted with his teacher. A squabble began between the young angels of the mansion. Rin was surprised that Diane reacted this way, but that meant he wanted her to stay. Manuel was already openly luring her to him, feeling superior to Diane. He was a higher level for a long time and Diane was stuck at the first. Diane boldly replied that Rin was his, and that Manuel should not even think about her. Rin tried to calm them down, but in the end she drew attention to herself. Manuel decided that it was better to ask Rin herself who she would want to choose between the two. Diane sank. He felt like he was losing. Manuel was sure that Rin chose Diana because all other options were taken, but she suddenly refuted his thoughts. She's tired of watching her dear Diane sour before her eyes. She confidently stated that she made the choice consciously. Diane instantly perked up. Rin admitted that once she had doubts, but it was for a moment out of desperation. Diane is truly difficult to raise. Manuel was at a loss. His surprise knew no bounds. It has never happened before that they chose another character instead of him. Rin continued that for the 44th time she would have chosen Diane over other applicants. Minwell snorted at this. The conversation lost interest for him. Minwell stood up and headed towards the exit. Finally, he threw an insult. "You're just a klutz, I don't need one like that," and left. Diane was delighted. He asked Rin if what she said was true. At Diane's nod, she glowed even more. Now that he had forgotten about the unsuccessful beginning of their acquaintance, she decided to renew it. At first, she introduced herself as Rin Dorchester. Diane happily supported the renewal of acquaintance. He noticed that Rin spoke to him like a maid, not a teacher. But there was nothing wrong with that. Rin wanted to admit that this was the role she played the last time. But she doesn't know how to be a teacher. But in order not to fall in the eyes of the pupil, she remained silent. After that, Diane could calmly talk about the incident this morning. He admitted that it was the first time he had seen the Moros monster so close. Next time, Diane promised to be braver and protect his teacher. Rin thought this was very cute. She couldn't contain her emotions. Suddenly, a maid came in to show Rin to her room. Diane took it positively. He already wanted to rest. Being alone wouldn't hurt. Rin entered her room. She was the same as before, but there was still no connection with the system, and the increased reality of the game frightened her. If this is a bug, she will be kicked out of the game in 48 hours. But 48 hours in reality is half a month in the game. There's a lot of waiting. But what should she do if this is not a bug? Has the game become a reality? It's kind of creepy. Rin tried to push such thoughts out of her head. It's better to look around the room. Having taken a closer look at her old room, she still found something new for herself. It was a beautiful teacher's outfit, but she would prefer to find the player's suitcase. The player's suitcase is a basic set of everything you need. It contains personal belongings, weapons, and most importantly, an instruction book. Rin really missed her now, so she went out to walk around the mansion and look for him, but he was nowhere to be seen. She came across a maid and decided to ask her. She was very scared. She claimed that she did not take it. All things were delivered to the room. The suitcase was among them. Nobody took him. I didn't care about the instructions anymore, but Rin couldn't remain without a weapon. She noticed a battle axe on the wall. He was suitable for defense. Suddenly, a small round box rolled up to her foot. She bent down to pick it up and saw someone approaching her. It was Ruska, the angel of the first room. She rarely crossed paths with him in the game, but she knew him well. Picking up the box, she hurried to return it to Ruska, but it was angrily snatched away by an unfamiliar woman who suddenly jumped up to them. She threatened Rin that she should not come near her child. The woman threw the box away, saying that Rin might have already done something with it. She took Ruska and took him away. Rin didn't know this new character, but she decided that she didn't want to get to know such an unfriendly, rude lady. Rin hurried to the backyard of the mansion, remembering that there were weapons hidden there. And there really was a revolver there. This made her very happy. She heard voices in the garden. Someone laughed because some Cheshi fell into the water. Rin didn't know this character, and it was impossible to see from behind the bushes. She decided it was best to hurry back to the mansion. But on the way, I came across a wet young man. If it was drizzling, then Rin was ready to defend herself. But the young man greeted warmly. He said that he guessed that she was the teacher from the 7th room. But Rin didn't know who was in front of her. He was tall with an excellent physique. Doesn't look like an ordinary worker at all. Rin was glad that she did not have time to attack him like a drizzle. The handsome stranger decided that Rin was lost. She decided not to tell the real reason for her being here, and she simply nodded sweetly in response. She gladly agreed to explore the surroundings with a new acquaintance. Although after playing through the game 43 times, I already knew everything perfectly. But then she realized that the young man was still wet. Therefore, she suggested that he postpone the excursion so that he had time to change clothes. The unfamiliar character laughed and apologized for his appearance. It turned out that the young man was simply helping the guys get the ball from the pond. He refused to change clothes. The weather was warm, so the clothes had to dry quickly. The stranger introduced himself as Cheshi. He said that he had been living in a mansion for a year, but Rin never figured out his role in the game. She really liked this new character. Up close, he seemed even more handsome. Cheshi admired the way Rin dealt with the Moros monster. She decided to hide the fact that this was not the first time for her. He wouldn't understand anyway. There were two misfortunes in the game: monsters and evil spirits. Both of them were hunting the angelic youths from the mansion. Evil spirits were called demons, but monsters were more often mentioned as moros. It means corpse in Latin. By nature something like bloodthirsty zombies, very dangerous like demons. Cheshi also asked about the elite course. This was very prestigious for a teacher. But Rin could not answer this because she herself did not know what she was talking about. It turns out that all the residents of the mansion were eagerly awaiting the arrival of the new teacher in the 7th room. Rumors fueled interest, but there was no complete information. After killing Moros, it became clear that the rumors were true. The other teachers wanted to see Rin. She probably already knows the teacher from the 4th room because he is also one of the elite. But for Rin, the words elite course and Stella meant absolutely nothing. She had not heard of them in the game, and she did not have new instructions. She also learned from Chesha that there would be a banquet in her honor that evening. They agreed to meet there and chat about this and that. The pleasant acquaintance was interrupted by Minwell's irritable voice. He called Cheshi and was not happy with his interaction with Rin. He hurried to his pupil. It turned out that Cheshi himself is a teacher. Just the most capricious and favored angel of the 2nd room, Minwell. After Cheshi left, Rin noticed that it was already quite late. It's time to rush to Diane. But it seems it was too late. The maid rushed towards her, screaming about trouble. Rin ran into Diane's room, expecting the worst. He reassured her that he had just hurt his leg and that was all. But this also did not make Rin happy. Diane was looking for her, and because of this, he injured his leg. From now on, there is no need to leave him alone. Diane is one of those characters who gets hurt very easily. The student was interested in why she was not in the room. Rin didn't say anything about Cheshi. She replied that she was just looking for her suitcase. The dressing was terrible. So Rin decided to remake it. Over the course of 43 playthroughs of the game, she learned to be a real healer. I already knew how to do a lot of things myself. There were healer characters in the game, but the quality of their treatment did not make Rin very happy. Therefore, each time she developed her medical skills, Diane thanked her for changing the bandage. It was much more convenient for him this way. He also remembered why he came to her. He wanted to invite her to a banquet. Rin replied that this is now impossible. Diane was very upset. She hastened to reassure him that she would stay with him. The banquet is not important to her. This angered Diane. A banquet is held in her honor, and it is wrong for the hero of the occasion not to attend. Rin decided to offer options for a joint hike, but crutches, a stroller, and a carrier did not suit Diane. She had to accept it and go on her own. She didn't know who was more upset. Diane, because he stupidly had to miss an important event, or she, because she had to go without him. Rin intended to at least make good use of the event. Here she could collect more information from other educators. Rin entered the dining room. There were a lot of people there, a lot of new, unfamiliar characters. She hurried to greet them, but she heard a return greeting only from Chesha. The rest observed deathly silence. Their views could not be called benevolent. Rin found it funny how the welcome banquet in her honor was held. She did not understand the reasons for such hostile attitude. She still had hope of breaking the ice. She walked over and sat down in an empty seat, maintaining her smile and not losing her composure. Angel Vivi tried to greet her with some curiosity, but he was stopped. Then he immediately fell silent. One of the teachers asked Rin about her outfit. It seemed to her that she specifically wanted to stand out. Another teacher chimed in. The story of the drizzle was also mentioned. Rin's behavior seemed defiant to the teachers. Rin didn't like this discussion. She suggested getting to know each other first. Because of the adults around me, I only knew Cheshi. One of the ladies snorted. Cheshi decided to intervene. He suggested that the reception of an elite course teacher could take place in a different order. And Rin did not receive information from the house elder. She decided to agree. Chesha's help was helpful. Now Rin understood why the offer to meet was perceived so negatively, although she felt that this did not justify their attitude towards her. And this is not at all the example that educators should set for their students. Cheshi then turned to teacher Raven. He was surprised that Rin did not remember him, because they should have crossed paths in Stella. Raven said that Stella is big. There are many departments. They might not have intersected. One of the teachers suggested that everyone introduce themselves for clarity. Rin, their behavior was suspicious. She had already formed a definite opinion about those who sat at the same table with her. In the first room lived the quiet and calm young man Ruska. His teacher was Mariana, who had a cold and rude disposition. The second room was inhabited by the arrogant and narcissistic Minwell. His teacher was a cute, intelligent Cheshi with violet eyes. In the third room lived the friendly and sweet Vivi. Eugenia was his tutor, a follower of the rules and, at first glance, a smart girl. In the fourth room lived the mischievous joker Leo, a very active young man. His teacher was Raven. He is also clearly not a stupid young man. It was he who was dissatisfied with Rin's behavior. The occupant of the fifth room was Sergiu, a quiet and obedient young man. His teacher was the impudent Olivia, who disliked Rin. The sixth room was inhabited by the smart, slightly emotionless Jay. His teacher is Gilbert, a silent, self-conscious young man. Well, in the seventh room lived the adored Diane with ruby eyes and blonde, slightly silvery hair. The sweetest young man for Rin. She did a good job on her character's appearance. But all these discussions were interrupted by the banquet dinner, which was finally served. The menu should include steak and chimichurri sauce. The maid served the banquet dish and wished you bon appétit, but everyone gasped as soon as they took the lid off the plate. There were red corpse flowers. Rin saw them on the corpse. Therefore, I knew that there was an imitation on the plate. In front of everyone, she pricked a flower with a fork and ate it. Everyone at the table, and even the servants, shuddered. They didn't expect anyone to decide to eat it. Rin thanked her for dinner. She mockingly asked why others weren't eating. It seemed to her that the 44th time the passage would be much more interesting. Rin hurried from this terrible banquet to her beloved Diane. He was surprised by her quick return. Dinner had just been brought, and Diane didn't have time to eat it. Rin suggested that they start working on it immediately, because they could hear the rumbling of a small tummy. And she herself wasn't full of flowers alone. There was steak on his plate, as it should have been. Diane didn't mind having dinner together. Although I was surprised that Rin remained hungry after the banquet, I managed to bring 2 pieces of cake from the banquet. Rin was ready to give Diane both of them, but the student did not agree. He made a heart out of 2 pieces of cake. It was for this purpose that he asked to bring 2 pieces. Rin thought this was very cute. She couldn't help but hug him at that moment. Rin was happy and Diane was in 7th heaven. The 44th passage allowed them to finally get closer. Every morning the servants of the Redford mansion began their day with prayer. They were sprinkled with holy water, after which everyone went to get to work. These procedures were carried out in order to identify Moros and demons among the servants. But despite this, one of the maids turned into a Moros. Among the servants, they began to say that these procedures were pointless. After the incident with the Moros that Rin killed, gossip about the new teacher quickly spread among the servants. Some people were afraid to show themselves to her. Someone was happy for Diane. The maid Sarah Rosa, who was responsible for cleaning the 7th room, began to be pestered with questions. But she could not answer anything. She herself could not yet understand what the new teacher was like. Rin lost her things, and she kindly lent her clothes. The new owner had no whims, rude behavior, or special requirements. For 3 days they had not yet crossed paths enough to draw any conclusions. Sarah Rose had only worked at the mansion for a week, and she was pestered here more by other maids who considered themselves higher in rank. The status of the rooms assigned to them was much higher. Therefore they behaved arrogantly and oppressed others. Even this morning, Sarah Rose's jug of water was taken from her by the maid in the 2nd room. It's nothing you can do. She filled a new jug and went to her mistress. It so happened that something hit her in the room. She lost her balance but was caught in time. It was the new teacher, Rin. She asked if Sarah was all right. She nodded. Rin laughed that she opened the window too much and the tablecloth flew off when the door was opened. Sarah was finally able to see the face of the new teacher. She had amazing pink eyes and a round, cute face. Sarah Rose thought that she looked rather fragile. Will Mrs. Rin be able to handle the job of a teacher at the Redford mansion? Sarah thanked her for her help and offered her water for washing, which is what she came here for. She couldn't take her eyes off Rin, and Rin herself was thinking that it was the 4th day of the game. She still could not leave it, could not see the system windows with hints. The system window displayed the schedule for the day, warned about the approach of the character, and gave out tasks that could be completed with him. Rin was only happy that the mansion was still calm. Therefore, she performed the traditional ritual of washing with holy water that is common in the mansion. A mansion in which there are monsters and demons cannot do without this ritual. There were other mandatory rules of this house. It was impossible to lift a gold button stained with blood. It was also not advisable to talk to a girl dressed all in black. It was necessary to close all the windows before going to bed and not open them, even after hearing a knock. These simple rules made it possible to be less vulnerable in the game. It's good that Rin was already an old man in the game, so she remembered a lot, and in this case she no longer needed instructions from the system. But she didn't know how to establish contact with the maid. This is where hints from the system would come in handy. While Sarah Rose avoided her. Being a maid herself, she was friends with Sarah. In a new role, you will have to make friends again. Rin thanked her for the clothes. Remembering the reaction to her outfit at the banquet, she asked Sarah about it. She replied that these were uniforms for the evaluation ceremony, but not for the banquet. Everything fell into place. It is understandable why the teachers decided that Rin wanted to stand out, but she didn't know about these nuances. Today is the 4th day in the game, which means that the first episode of the game will begin to unfold. Diane will get sick. He will have a fever. The doctor will prescribe medicine for the flu and say that everything will pass soon, but the fever will not subside. Then there will be a rumor about a purple room, like Diane was in contact with the ghost in her and hence the illness. So Rin will have to find this purple room and solve this riddle. Rin really doesn't want her baby to get sick, but he will strictly adhere to the game. Everything should go smoothly because this is the 44th time. I didn't want to think about bad things. She hurried to visit her pupil. But Diane was not very happy about her sudden visit. He was angry that she didn't knock. Rin noticed that her baby was hiding something under the blanket. As his protector, she needed to know what. Under the pretext that the blanket was dirty, Rin began to pull it off to supposedly change it. Diane was scared. Another moment and his secret was revealed. Under the blanket, he hid the half-eaten beans from breakfast. Realizing his exposure, he immediately started eating them, claiming that he was stashing them away for later. Rin understood everything. Playing along with him, she asked him to finish her beans too. Diane's eyes widened. He wouldn't have been able to handle the second portion. Rin admitted that she doesn't like beans. As a child, she was forced to eat them. That's why even now she is not happy about their appearance on the plate. She gave Diane permission not to eat beans if he didn't like them. He admitted that he just didn't want to upset her, not being perfect. Rin replied that she did not need a perfect Diane but just a living one. She loves him the way he eats. Diane was happy to have Rin as his tutor. After meeting with the pupil, Rin's mood was excellent. The sun was shining, she liked her new role. Diane liked her. Everything was wonderful. Rin fluttered through the corridors. She greeted the surprised maids and wished them a wonderful day. But suddenly I witnessed a terrible scene. Mariana, Ruska's teacher from the first room, read the maid. She asked for forgiveness for her mistake. But Marianne hit her. Rin paused to listen. She was horrified by the scene. This has never happened before in the game. The reason for Marianne's anger is that the maid mixed up the medications. Nothing bad happened to Ruska, but hypothetically it could have. Therefore, Marianne punished the maid by sending her to the Garden of the Abyss. This was the first time Rin had heard about the Abyssal Garden. Judging by the maid's reaction, the place was creepy and dangerous. She begged for forgiveness. But Marianne was adamant. Other maids on orders dragged the culprit somewhere. Rin wanted to follow them. She was curious about what the Abyssal Garden was and where it was located. Rin followed them. She was surprised that there was such a place on the territory of the mansion. In the courtyard of the mansion, she had never noticed such a gate before. Rin was curious about what was behind them. The maids left their colleague behind them and left. Rin remained to look at them. No smells. Creepy atmosphere. It was alarming but interesting. Someone began to make their way towards Rin from the bushes. She noticed that someone was constantly watching her. And now, near the Garden of the Abyss, he decided to prove himself. Wait! Rin greeted Minwell. He was surprised that his surveillance was discovered. But I didn't understand why she wanted to go to the Abyss Garden. Minwell was worried. So he decided to warn her that this was a devilish place. It's strange that as an elite teacher she doesn't know about this. Rin began asking questions about this place. Minwell thought that she was fooling around and mocking him. Suddenly everything began to swim before his eyes. Rin managed to catch him in time before he lost consciousness. He had a fever. The situation was familiar, but this was not her pupil. At the mansion, Minwell was examined by a doctor and prescribed medicine for a cold. Everything unfolded according to the scenario of the first episode. Only Minwell was sick, not Diane. The doctor advised him to wake him up, give him something to drink and give him medicine. Rin considered him a useless charlatan. Cheshi began to carry out orders. After the medicine, Minwell fell asleep again. Cheshi was at a loss. He was preparing for the worst, and he blamed himself for everything. Rin tried to console him. She said that Minwell will definitely recover. But it seemed to her that this was not a common cold. Cheshi was surprised. Rin decided to disturb Manuel and question him. She tried to find out about the violation of the rules in the purple room. Manuel did not immediately admit that he went to the purple room. So the plot hasn't changed. Rin knew what to do. Cheshi was angry with Manuel, but Rin suggested leaving him. The screams made his temperature rise. The boy needed rest. Cheshi was worried about him. He didn't know how to treat the guy now. Rin said that the cause of the disease has already been found out. Now all that remains is to go to the purple room. Rin made an appointment for Cheshi at midnight. They will go together to the purple room and find salvation for Manuel. Cheshi was not keen on the idea of visiting the purple room, but there is no other way to cure Manuel. So he agreed. Cheshi asked where they could get the key to the purple room, but Rin smiled and waved the key in front of his face. Cheshi was surprised that she was given this key so easily, but Rin refuted his thoughts. She took it herself, without asking. This is necessary for business. She has a new partner to go through. Circumstances change, but she is ready for any difficulties. Everything is fine. Before heading to the purple room, Rin decided to visit Diane. It was already 1 o'clock in the evening. The baby had to be put to bed. Diane was not alone at this late hour. The boys from the 3rd and 4th rooms came to him, Vivi and Leo. They greeted Rin. It was really late. Before their teachers started looking for them, they decided to go to their rooms. Rin was glad that Diane had friends. It's good that he spends time with his peers. They promised to come visit again. Rin suggested that Diane invite them over for tea with goodies tomorrow. He sharply said that they have their own teachers and they will not change them. Diane didn't understand why Rin was so excited by their appearance. She claimed that soon they would also be close. Diane chuckled and went to bed. This conversation was incomprehensible to him, as was his teacher's delight in the guests. Rin, wishing Diana sweet dreams, went about her business. Her pupil was safe. Manuel fell ill in his place. Rin felt kind of awkward about this. Wandering around the mansion at night, Rin witnessed a spicy scene. Teacher Raven was harassing the mansion's maid. Sarah's maid was a very attractive young lady, but she was clearly not interested in Raven. He received a good blow to the sickest one. The feeling of annoyance quickly gave way to a feeling of shame when he noticed Rin. In irritation and pain, he hobbled away. Rin waited until 11 in the evening. The lights in the mansion were turned off. She began to make her way into the unfinished wing. Rin was worried that Cheshi would change his mind. He was scared by going to the ghost room, but as a gentleman, he should not have left the lady alone. In addition, Manuel did not feel better from the medications. Rin thought about going after Cheshi but didn't know where his room was. This was an oversight. You'll have to go to the purple room yourself and hope that Cheshi finds his way. When she reached the ghost room, she decided to open it herself. She had no patience, but she had the key. Suddenly, she felt someone's presence. It wasn't Cheshi. She pulled out a revolver and pointed it at the approaching figure. Raven screamed. He did not expect such a turn. Raven started screaming at her to put the gun away. But Rin didn't let him down. He was seriously scared, expecting a shot. Rin wanted to know why he was following her. What did he want from her? She had many questions for him and a lot of mistrust. Raven began to mention the rules of the game. They indicate that you cannot harm other players. Rin could be kicked out of the game for this. The mention of the rules had no effect on her. But emboldened by this knowledge, Raven decided to risk taking the revolver by force. Rin was surprised by the counterattack but managed to fight back. Raven had no luck that evening. Was beaten by girls twice. Raven began to lament that he just wanted to start a relationship. Rin snorted at this. He clarified that he was not with her. He doesn't like such aggressive ladies. Sarah sent him a letter to wait for her here at 12. He hoped for a date and reconciliation, and then he was attacked again. Rin was surprised about the letter, Sarah's behavior, and the strange choice of place for the date. But the door to the annex suddenly closed. They were trapped. Instead of Cheshire, Raven became a partner in the passage. A figure could be seen outside the window trying to get inside. Raven was scared. Rin annoyedly noted that it was Cheshi. She tried to explain to him that it would not be possible to enter, but he himself guessed that he was late. Raven was intrigued. He thought that Rin and Cheshi were also planning a date here. How unexpected. Rin denied his speculation and called him a pervert. She would really like to be with Cheshi now, and not with Raven. Raven reciprocated. He would much rather spend time with the gentle Sarah now than with the aggressive Rin. Rin couldn't judge Sarah's tenderness given what she saw earlier. and a date in a place infested with ghosts is suspicious. Raven was just about to ask why Rin needed the purple room. Is it true that there are ghosts there? Suddenly, a woman in black appeared in front of them. Rin remembered the rule: not to talk to her and especially not to answer her questions. By answering 3 times, you can earn a curse on your head. Raven was startled by the sudden appearance of the lady in black, but then sighed. He decided that it was Mariana, the teacher from the first room. He asked her what she was doing here. The ghost, noticing the reaction, approached him. Rin warned that this was not Marianne. Don't answer her. But Raven continued further. He said that Marianne really does look like a ghost, but he sees her every day, so he won't confuse her. Have you seen my child? Asked the ghost. Raven was confused. Has Ruska really disappeared? He thought he was well looked after. Rin shouted at him not to answer, but he replied that he had not seen it. He continued to dialogue with the ghost as if nothing had happened. If you answer 3 questions from the woman in black, then trouble awaits. The player will begin to choke and hallucinate until they enter the purple room. 1 answer has already been made. This was followed by a second question from the ghost. Does my child prefer a purple bow or a yellow cap? Raven did not understand the meaning of this question. The ghost continued to repeat it. He needed a specific answer. Eventually, Raven had enough. He chose a bow to be left behind. Rin had just found the key to the purple room. A third question from the ghost followed. Can you get rid of the red flowers on my child's body? Raven shouted to Rin that the woman in black did not seem to be Marianne. She confirmed, because she had already talked about it. She asked me not to answer any more questions. The door to the purple room was open. Rin went inside. Raven asked her to quickly go back. It wasn't difficult. Rin knew where what she was looking for was. According to the story of the game, there lived a boy who died due to an accident. The ghost in black is his mother. Raven did not calm down. He begged Rin to hurry up. The ghost did not leave him a single step, but Rin had already found the purple bow, the dead boy. Raven needed to hold on a little longer. This bow should be placed at the place where the boy died, on the top of the outbuilding where chrysanthemums grow. Rin rushed towards the top of the outbuilding. The ghost rushed after her. The woman in black screamed at her to return the bow, but Rin managed to run to the chrysanthemums and put a bow on them. The ghost screamed. In an instant, Marianne and Ruska appeared in front of Rin, joyfully greeting each other. The episode ended somehow differently. The annex opened and Rin was able to get out. Cheshi was waiting for her at the entrance. Raven had already run out as soon as the door opened. Cheshi was glad to see her. He asked again for Raven. Didn't he require a lot of attention? Now they can conduct the meeting as they intended. Rin was outraged. She had no intention of paying attention to Raven. He came to meet another lady. It so happened that they fell into a trap together. Cheshi was upset about this. He came despite the fact that the place was dangerous, and Rin was with Raven. But Rin herself was not delighted with such company. To please Cheshi, she gave him a chrysanthemum flower. It was necessary for him to place it by Minwell's bed. Then he will get well. Cheshi said that then they should hurry to Minwell. At the boys' room they separated. Rin went to her room, and Cheshi went to the pupil. Minwell was surprised by his teacher's late visit. Cheshi explained that he wanted to help cure him. Minwell was skeptical about the ideas of the new teacher, whom Cheshi listened to, but he denied it. Cheshi also did not believe that ghosts had anything to do with the disease, but he found something interesting in Minwell's room. It was Rin's suitcase. Stealing from a mansion is against the rules, and for breaking the rules there is always a punishment, hence Minwell's illness. The student was shocked that he was discovered. Cheshi asked him to explain himself. Rin was wrong about the reasons, but he decided not to upset her. Minwell admitted that he was angry with Rin. This is when she didn't choose him, but Diane did. Therefore, I decided to take revenge on her and hide the suitcase. Cheshi reproached him for not thinking about the consequences. Did he really want to change the teacher? Minwell denied. Just wanted to annoy Diane. He asked Cheshi for forgiveness. The teacher was strict. He had forgiven him many times already. He was starting to get bored with the game and was already thinking about quitting it. But suddenly it became interesting. Therefore, he decided to forgive Minwell for the last time. Next time, he may run into the wrath of his teacher. Cheshi decided to keep the chrysanthemum flower. Minwell had no need for it. The disease will pass as soon as the suitcase returns to its owner. The next morning, Sarah Rose found a suitcase at the door of the room. She hastened to please her mistress that her loss had been found. This was a pleasant surprise for Rin. She had all the things, weapons, and a book with instructions. Now it will become much easier. The first thing Rin did was grab the instructions and begin to reread them. She was interested in information about the teachers. First of all, she was interested in what this role was. It was written in the book that her responsibility was to raise and protect the boy. He must develop both soul and body. That is, study, training, teaching. She must grow from him. But there was a blot. In general, Rin understood. She already knew these basics. It was a shame that the blot obscured the most interesting part. Rin moved on to the rules. The first said that you cannot tell your child about your knowledge from the academy. The second is a ban on harming a boy, not for educational purposes. The third was removal from the position if the teacher did not pass the monthly assessment. Fourth, it is necessary to keep a diary about the child's condition. Rin was confused. She didn't keep a diary. I was worried about my qualifications. It was time to go to Diane. Rin left these issues for later. You need to do at least what she knows. At breakfast, Rin was very worried. Therefore, I did not notice how quickly I absorbed food, until Diane paid attention to it. Rin made the excuse that she still had a lot to do. That's why she's in such a hurry. She couldn't stop looking at her sweet Diane chick. A blue bow with a white shirt, pants with beige suspenders and hair pulled up. He was going to a violin lesson. He wondered what was going on with his teacher. Rin replied that she would visit Manuel, who was ill. He wants to know how he is feeling. Diane was surprised that the strongest of the boys in the mansion was sick. He wanted to visit him with Rin. She thought it was cute. She allowed me to go with her. Manuel was not at all happy about their visit. He has already fully recovered, and he didn't need any reminders of the incident. And then Diane brought purple flowers. He remembered the purple chrysanthemum and got angry. Diane responded by expressing his dissatisfaction with this reception. Rin decided to calm them down and change the subject. She asked for Cheshi. Minwoo replied sharply that he did not know and should not know. It came up that they saw Rin at night. Diane was puzzled by this. He didn't like that Rin was starting to get close to someone. Rin hurried to calm him down. She hugged him and convinced him that he was still in first place. Minwoo completely freaked out and kicked them out the door. Diane did not understand Minwoo's reaction at all. He thought that he would be glad that they were visiting him, and he treated them so rudely. As a XX candidate, you can't think less of him. But you can't do that either, noted Diane. Rin was surprised. She didn't know about the candidates in XXX. What is this anyway? Diane went to class. Rin did not detain him and question him for XXX. Before class, he was thoughtful and self-absorbed. His peers noticed this. They joked that he was thinking about his teacher. Some were even a little jealous. Diane knew how lucky he was. He was already thinking about leaving the mansion. But then he was informed that a new teacher was being assigned to him. He was very happy, but he was also very worried. Diane was nervous that he would disappoint her and that she would leave him. Therefore, I listened to Minwoo's advice. Only now did he realize that this was stupid advice. There was no point in being rude to her and pretending to be God knows what. He should have been grateful to her for choosing him. As his teacher, Diane prepared a gift for Rin. That is why he consulted with other guys. He really wanted her to like the gift. At this time, Rin decided to visit Cheshi. She already knew where his room was. She needed to check the instruction books and ask about the incomprehensible hieroglyphs. Somehow it turned out that she took liberty and entered Chesha's room without knocking, because of which I witnessed him cooing with the maid Sira. Rin gasped, apologized, and ran out. She definitely didn't expect this. Sira and Cheshi? What about Raven? What a surprise. She just remembered Raven, and he appeared in front of her. He approached in a friendly manner to inquire about the night's adventures in the Purple Room. Raven couldn't believe that all this was true. Rin advised him to go to the Purple Room again to make sure, and then Cheshi caught up with her. He wondered why she came to him. Sira followed Cheshi out of his room. Raven was surprised by her appearance. He started asking Sira what she was doing in Chesha's room, but he didn't wait for an answer. Raven made his conclusions and directed all his anger at Cheshi. Raven pounced on Cheshi, ready to tear him to pieces. He tried to find out what Sira was doing with him. He cursed and accused him of getting all the best. Sira did not continue to observe the scene and left. She didn't say anything, but gave Rin an unkind look. She shouldn't have bothered them. Cheshi bravely endured the attacks and coldly replied that the maid was cleaning up. Rin couldn't believe it as she saw the atmosphere in the room with her own eyes. But she said nothing. Raven released Cheshi incredulously. He hoped it was true. Cheshi turned his attention to Rin. He wondered why she came. Rin replied that she wanted to borrow an instruction book. Cheshi said he didn't understand what she was talking about. But Raven made sure that everyone received this book. Cheshi suggested that they come in and he would try to look for her for Rin. But she flatly refused. Cheshi was upset that she apparently also misunderstood the situation with the maid. Raven cut in again. He said he could borrow Rin's book. He doesn't need her now. He already knows it by heart. Rin accepted the offer. Cheshi turned out to be not as good a girl as she immediately decided. Rin could not have thought before that she would more gladly accept Raven's help than Cheshi. Minwell's teacher was clearly unhappy with this turnaround. They said goodbye to him and left, discussing ghosts and the mansion. Moving away, Raven gave advice not to get close to Cheshi. He's lucky for a reason. Quite cunning and with a deceptive appearance. Rin replied that she didn't want to get close to anyone. Raven was surprised because they had passed the test together in the purple room. This was supposed to bring us closer together. Rin mentioned that he actually ran away and left her. Raven denied that this was not so. He remembered what he wanted to tell her. Raven warned her not to tell Marianne from the first room about the ghost. Rin had even more questions, but Raven did not explain, but only warned that this was not necessary. He gave her the book and they said goodbye, but the ban and curiosity did not give her rest. Rin went in search of Marianne to find out everything. She dined in the courtyard surrounded by maids. Rin greeted her. Mariana was not in the mood to talk. Therefore, she hurried to leave with her retinue. Rin managed to follow up by asking about the ghost. Marianne stopped when she heard about the purple room. The maids were scared. Their expressions told Rin not to continue talking about it. Rin didn't stop. He said that she wanted to look at this ghost herself. It was a woman with red hair. Marianne wanted to know what she was getting at and what she hoped for. And Rin continued that this woman's boy has black hair. Mariana swung her whip, but Rin managed to catch it. She deliberately pissed her off in order to find out the truth. Marianne threatened that she should not dare to talk about the past owners of the first room. She reproached her for her lack of manners and behavior inappropriate for a mansion. Suddenly, Ruska approached. He didn't understand why the teachers were quarreling, but the adults began to deny confrontation. Rin noticed the book in his hands. She asked what he was reading. Marianne got angry. She had already warned Rin not to touch her pupil. The situation was saved by Cheshi, who asked to join them. He was wet again from head to toe. Rin asked him about what happened. Cheshi said the kids threw the ball into the pond again. Marianne reproached him for irresponsibility, and she hurried to take Ruska away from the people who were setting a bad example. But in this case, Rin understood that playing near the pond could be dangerous. Cheshi said he warned them, but everything ends as usual. Rin couldn't take her eyes off Cheshi's muscular body. He noticed this himself. He laughed that he felt awkward from such a look. Rin complimented him on how handsome he looked. Cheshi was pleased that she liked it. He even offered to take off his shirt. Rin immediately agreed but then stopped him. She claimed she was joking. Cheshi said he is quite shy, but for her sake I'm ready to overcome it. Rin remembered that there is a place for romance in the game, and not just raising children. If a character has a well-developed appearance, then you can build a relationship with him. And Chesha had simply perfect appearance. It seemed to her that the game had specifically created him according to her preferences. Cheshi again suggested taking off his shirt. But Rin refused. That's enough flirting for today. It's time to pick Diane up from class. Cheshi offered to accompany her because he also needed to pick up Minuel. Rin agreed. But all the way I tried to think about cats and not about Chesha's muscles. While they were walking together to pick up the children from the educational building, Rin decided to ask her colleague about Marianne. She wanted to understand the connection to the purple room. Cheshi has been here for a year now. Mariana arrived a little later. Therefore, Cheshi knew the previous owners of the first room. Cheshi asked why Rin was asking questions. She explained that she wanted to understand the connection between Marianne and the ghost. Then he said that the owner of the first room was Marianne's younger sister, and the dead boy is Ruska's twin brother. Rin gasped. She really acted ignorantly speaking to her about the ghost. She had no idea about the blood connection between the owners. Rin wanted to know who killed them. She assumed it was drizzling. But Cheshi denied her speculations, but he did not voice the true cause of death. Their paths diverged at this stage. He needed to go to another room. She managed to shout after him another interesting question. Rin asked who put the red flower on her plate at the banquet. Cheshi replied that she herself could guess who it could be. When Marianne and Ruska left Rin and Cheshi, the boy dared to ask a pointed question. He was interested in why Marianne didn't like the teacher from room 7. Marianne began to deny this. She didn't understand what caused today's scene. Maybe out of stupidity, maybe out of spite. Rin questioned her. In any case, Marianne tried to maintain a neutral position and be indifferent to the new teacher. Marianne changed the subject to the fact that they needed to return to the room. Ruska has been in the sun for a long time, and it's time to take the medicine. She herself was thinking about the purple room. Rin's words confirmed the rumors. She didn't believe them before, but now she wanted to check them out in person. Rin was also terribly curious. Therefore, she changed her clothes to the old ones, for maids, and went to the backstage of the mansion. The maids were just discussing the disappearance of a colleague from the first room. It was rumored that her belongings were burned in an incinerator. Those who were sent to the Abyssal Garden or the Devil's Flower Garden did not return. They say that this place sucks out life energy. Rin walked closer to the maids and asked for detergent. They were surprised to see her. They thought she was new and continued the conversation. One maid asked why that unfortunate woman was sent to the Devil's Flower Garden. They said she changed her medications. Many were sure it was unintentional. Rin was curious if the maids in the first room were often punished like this. She was told that it doesn't happen often, but it happens. Rin didn't understand why everyone was rushing to serve in the first room. It turned out that at the evaluation ceremony, the first room is always in the lead. Mariana and Ruska are an example of the upbringing of bygone times, just like the previous owners, which the old residents of the mansion remember well. The maids recalled with sympathy Marina's and Luis, the former owners of the first room. Unfortunate fate. Rin asked about the tragedy. She wanted to clarify about the drizzle. The maids, like Cheshi, denied this. Nobody knew for sure. The rumors were that Luis was killed and Marina's committed suicide. Rin didn't let up. She wanted to know the name of the killer. But the maids didn't know. It was known that it was someone from the mansion. The maids condoled Cheshi. Rin was surprised by this. It turned out that Cheshi was in a relationship with Marina's. How awkward it was again. The maids began to talk about how Sarah was attracted to Mr. Cheshi, but he doesn't react to her. Rin calmed down a little about this. The maids began to discuss who the most beautiful teacher was. Rin thought that she could leave. She had heard enough for today. As Rin made her way to her room, Sarah Rose saw her. She was shocked by her appearance. Did she really forget to prepare clothes for the lady and she had to put on a uniform? Rin objected. She chose this outfit herself. She really liked the maid's uniform. But just in case, I asked Sarah to keep it a secret. Rin continued to make her way to her room. She was worried about meeting someone else, but she heard Raven's voice calling out to her. He was surprised by her outfit. Everyone knew that the suitcase with her things had already been found. Then Rin went on the offensive. She pushed him against the wall. Raven was confused. They attack him again. But he didn't do anything. He might even take Rin's side and remain silent if necessary. Raven realized that the maid's uniform was worn for a reason. Perhaps Rin is Stella's special agent, and now she's on a mission. Rin decided to support the legend. So there is a guarantee that he will try to keep quiet. She turned to leave, but Raven followed her. He asked why she didn't listen to him. Why was it necessary to ask Marianne when he said not to do it? Raven knew in detail about her meeting with Marianne, both about the whip and about verbal confrontation. It's unclear what Rin was thinking about. Rin started to get annoying with Raven, and she decided to put pressure on him so that he would run away. I came up with the idea of reproaching him for this incident with Marianne. Raven made excuses as best he could, but in fact he was not guilty. Rin was so busy teasing Raven that she didn't notice the couple from the 5th room. Olivia was outraged by what she saw. She perceived everything in a different light. I immediately thought that Raven was pestering the maids again. But then Olivia saw that it was Rin in front of her. For some reason, she was in a maid's uniform. Many questions arose. Olivia reproached Raven for his behavior, and even in front of a child, and even with this nasty new teacher. He condemned her the other day. She grabbed her puzzled Serge and tried to quickly lead him away, finally shaming both teachers. Rin asked Raven what Olivia was talking about, regarding the condemnation of the 7th room. Raven said that's not true. Simply said by Olivia in a fit of anger. Suddenly a scream was heard. Rin and Raven were left to sort things out. It was necessary to run to help. Raven rushed after Rin. He didn't want to seem like a coward. Having arrived in time to the cry, Rin and Raven realized that their help was not particularly needed. Olivia handled the drizzle well on her own. She hit him with her cane. She was angry that the monster managed to ruin her dress. Serge stood aside and calmly watched the massacre. Rin decided to help Olivia. A knife is more effective in this matter than a cane. But she only managed to grab the monster. Olivia took advantage of the moment to pierce him with the sharp tip of her cane. And the corpse of the drizzle was covered with black flowers. Rin wondered why Olivia didn't do that right away. She snorted that it was up to her to decide how to deal with the monsters. She instantly clung to Serge. Olivia was worried about his condition. Did the drizzle not have time to hit her boy? Was he scared? She attacked him with her hugs. Raven reproached that he could have thanked him. Olivia was indignant. She didn't ask for help. She managed quite well on her own. Then Raven sarcastically replied that next time they would watch whether the drizzle would kill them or not. And then help. Rin decided to hurry to her place. The onlookers will soon arrive. Her conspiracy was already ruined. She didn't want to completely fail her secret operation. She was met by Sarah Rosa with a letter. It was from Stella. There was talk of some escort who was delayed. Stella's secretariat asked him to wait. He will arrive at the mansion soon. His name is Rafael Cardrigo. She recognizes it by its code. Blood oranges. The next day, Rin warned Diane that she needed to go to the city for a while. He was delighted. The teacher was surprised by the reaction. Her baby was clearly up to something. Diane hastened to reassure her that everything was fine. He doesn't mind her absence. Rin was still wary. Diane couldn't tell her that this was exactly what he was planning. He thought about sneaking out somewhere during lessons, but Rin shouldn't know that. Diane calmly finished his breakfast. And Rin kept thinking how anxious it was for her to leave him, especially after the recent appearance of Drizzle. After a bug in the game, they appear unpredictably, and calculating them is quite difficult. They retain their human appearance until the very end. Rin was worried that a new Drizzle might appear soon. Therefore, even a short separation from her pupil caused her anxiety. Rin consoled herself that Diane was safe while studying. The conditions of the game are such that the Moros do not attack while the child is busy with education. She said goodbye to her pupil and hurried to leave the mansion. Cheshi intercepted her in the corridor. He wanted to accompany her, but Rin was against it. She promised that next time she would take him with her. But now she needs to go alone. Rin said goodbye to Cheshi. She was starting to feel something for him. Rin got into the carriage. The next moment the driver was waking her up. They arrived in the city. Rin didn't even notice how it happened. My head hurt a little. Apparently she really fell asleep. Somehow, in a strange way, teleportation to another location occurred. She remembered the city well from past games. She went to the marketplace to buy some potions just in case. She also needed to buy clothes. A couple of suits for every day and one for home. There was enough money from the teacher's salary. If she had leveled up her alchemy skills, she would have prepared the potions herself. But due to a bug, this became impossible. Even a simple cold medicine had to be bought. Finally, she wanted to take blood oranges. She remembered that this was the escort code. But Rin didn't know how it would play out, so she bought citrus fruits just in case. The carriage ride repeated itself again according to the same scenario. For bugs in teleportation, Rin decided to leave malicious comments to the developers. She was looking forward to meeting her sweet Diane chick. But upon her return, she was informed that he was missing. The teacher said Diane asked to go to the restroom during recess. He left an hour ago, but never returned. All restrooms in the mansion were checked. He's nowhere to be found. Sarah Rose rushed over in a hurry and reported that Diane had been seen near the Devil's Flower Garden. That's what some of the maids said. She knew how to get there. Exit through the back door of the mansion and head to the west. Rin remembered that gate. She didn't hesitate one bit. Sarah Rose wanted to stop her, but Rin was determined. If her dear Diane is there, she will follow him there. Rin remembered very well that this was a cursed place, that it sucks out life energy, and that they usually don't come back from there. Rin ran into the Devil's Flower Garden. It was dark there. There were giant plants all around. A little later, she realized that they were flowers. It was a little creepy that ordinary flowers had grown to such a size. There was clearly a lack of a gardener here. It was quite difficult to get through. Rin saw the children's footprints. It must have been Diane. She followed them. Soon they took her to the pupil. The boy was confused, just sitting among the flowers. The appearance of the teacher caused him surprise and joy. Rin didn't want to waste time talking. She instantly picked up Diane and carried him towards the exit. It was impossible to linger here. Returning back, Rin realized that she did not remember the road. Yes, she wasn't here. Some are overgrown. It will be difficult to get out of here. But Rin did not lose heart and moved forward. She began to hear eerie voices. Diane didn't hear them. Only she. This didn't make her stop. Voices reproached her for being alive. They talked about two sisters. The youngest is native, the eldest is adopted. One died, dear. The voices blamed the receptionist for this. It was about some kind of escape. It's unclear where it came from. Suddenly, the creepy voices were replaced by the pleasant voice of Chesha. Rin raised her head and saw him in reality. She was happy but also surprised. Cheshi said that he learned about Dion from Sarah and followed Rin. The exchange of pleasantries between the teachers aroused the boys' indignation. They forgot about him, and it was already difficult for him to breathe. It's time to go out. Cheshi led them to the exit. Rin noticed that the flowers were planted more densely here. Cheshi explained that they can deliberately move to lure them into a trap. Rin became scared. What kind of flowers are these? Cheshi tried to touch them and they moved away. Now they could pass. The flowers seemed to have run away from them. Rin was shocked by this. Cheshi convinced them that for some reason they could not drain their energy. Therefore, there is no need to be afraid. They successfully reached the exit. Sarah Rose, Raven, the teacher, and a lot of maids were waiting for them at the gate. No one expected that everything would end so well. Raven marveled at Rin's luck, especially when Cheshi lied that the flowers avoided her. Why he said that, Rin didn't know. The Devil's Flower Garden reacted to negative vibrations. That is, he could only attack those who were not pure in soul. Rin didn't know about this. Diane was not in any danger, but she could be in danger. Cheshi asked what she would do if Flower Garden drained her energy. She could easily replenish his greenhouse. Rin knew that she was not a saint. That's why I wouldn't go there a second time. But why did Diane go there? Rin waited for an answer from her pupil. Diane took something out of her bag and handed it to her. He wanted to give her a seed from this garden so that she could grow a big, beautiful flower. He just wanted to do something nice for her. Rin smiled. That was cute. But the most important thing for her is the health of her little pupil. Cheshi asked where the idea came from. Diane admitted to talking to other boys, and Vivi told him what to give. Cheshi said the scene was very moving. Then he shouted sharply about some kind of healthy beetle. Rin and Diane didn't have time to see him. At that moment, Cheshi knocked the seeds out of Rin's hands. It was as if something had exploded. The seeds immediately took root. Rin knew that Cheshi did this for a reason, and he clearly knows much more about this mysterious place. But she was grateful to him for his help. After the adventures in the Devil's Flower Garden, Diane fell ill. Rin went to get medicine from the mansion's doctor, Conrad. She knocked and, without waiting for an answer, entered. Conrad was unfriendly. He reproached her for coming in without permission. The doctor grumbled that the mansion workers had no manners at all. He had wanted to leave here for a long time. Rin asked for medicine for her fever. Conrad said it was over. Rin asked to look. Maybe there was still something left. Conrad walked up to the shelves with displeasure. It's good that Rin distinguished the bottles and already saw the right one. Having received the necessary medicine, she hurried to Diane. She was surprised that Conrad was a love interest and was popular among the players. Rin thought he was rude and useless. That night she decided to stay with Diane. Her baby was sick. He felt bad. And when you are sick, you become somehow lonely. That's why Rin stayed. Diane told her to go to her place. He was worried that his teacher would also get sick, but she asked permission to spend the night with him. Diane fell asleep, but Rin couldn't sleep a wink. She kept talking about the Devil's Flower Garden, about not wanting to see Diane die again. This time the game has somehow changed. The characters do not act in a stereotyped way, like real people. Lots of emotions. Even she cannot remain indifferent. The next morning, she was met in the corridor by Olivia and Serge. She had already heard that Diane was sick. She grinned that this was not the first time. Olivia noted that Diane was very weak and sickly. He's too much trouble. That's why he didn't have a teacher for a long time. Rin was surprised by such impudence. How can she slander her child right to her face? But Olivia continued. She was sure that Rin regretted his choice. And if any boy were available, Diana would have swapped him for him. For example, her delightful Serge. Rin was angry because of what was said. She said every child deserves love. I doubted Olivia's competence if she didn't understand this. In addition, Rin threatened her so that she would not dare to speak about her child like that again. Otherwise, She won't leave it so easily. Angrily, Rin ran out of the mansion. It's a good thing Diane didn't hear her words. Suddenly, her ardor was cooled by a cold shower. The maid threw a bucket of water on her from the window. She made excuses that she did it by accident. She didn't see Rin. Somehow Rin strongly doubted this. Cheshi and Manuel, who witnessed this scene, were of the same opinion. Manuel was indignant that the maid allowed herself too much. Cheshi confirmed, "Even if not on purpose, you are supposed to apologize." Cheshi said he knew her and could bring her in to apologize. Manuel agreed that this should be done. He doesn't care about Rin, but the maid needs to be taught politeness. Rin didn't want this. She also recognized the maid. She was from the first room, and she was probably taking revenge for the conversation with her mistress. Manuel did not understand such softness. Cheshi noted Rin's good nature. He began to wipe it with his handkerchief. Rin blushed. Cheshi offered his clothes, but Rin refused. She didn't want to leave him naked, and it's hot outside. It can dry out quickly. Manuel watched these pleasantries for a long time. In the end, he couldn't stand it anymore. He began to be indignant that they were engaging in obscenity in front of his eyes. Cheshi said there was a spider on Manuel. He started jumping like crazy. A pot of flowers fell nearby. Manuel began to be indignant that they wanted to kill him. Cheshi grabbed his charge and said goodbye to Rin. She noticed that Cheshi was trying to save unnoticed. He is always alert and anticipates threats. Rin was in a hurry to meet the guest from Stella. Today is the day the escort arrives, and Rin is already late. The carriage arrived an hour ago. Rin was there but did not see the escort. The coachman said that he refused to leave until she arrived. She hurried to the carriage. She introduced herself with a bow and apologized for the wait. The door swung open. A handsome and grumpy young man came out from there. Rin decided that he was her type. He hastened to reproach her for being late, noting that he had waited a full hour and another 2 minutes and 48 seconds. Rin sighed. The handsome man turned out to be a rare boar. She called him by name to make sure he was the same escort. Rafael Cardrigo froze. He didn't like being called by his first name. He hissed for Rin Dorchester to take him to a less crowded place. Rin asked to follow her into the living room. He was indignant again. This was not a proper place for him. In general, he didn't like the mansion and the people here. Rin kept wondering who created such a terrible character for the character. She liked him less and less. Raphael reproached her for being proud. But despite the Archbishop's favor, she is only a butcher. Rin did not understand these words at all. He blamed her for stopping contact, but still enjoys Stella's benefits. Now everything will be different. Under his supervision, Raphael reached out and placed his hand on her shoulder. Rin completely mechanically punched him in the jaw. She didn't want this at all. Raphael was sure that this was a riot, that everything was on purpose. Rin apologized when she noticed his blood. She just didn't like his behavior. Conrad, the mansion's doctor, witnessed the scene. He was afraid that he had been noticed. He shouted that he didn't see anything and ran away. Raphael jumped up and continued to accuse Rin of being willful. He even threatened her that in a different situation he would have broken her legs. Raphael warned Rin not to miss reports about what was happening in the mansion, so that she is always in touch and does not take it into her head to be willful. The system will immediately detect a violation of duties or rules and let Stella know. Therefore, there are no options to evade. Suddenly the system window loaded. A lot of time has passed since the bug, and now it has finally launched. Rin realized that Stella's escort was literally a game escort. That is, the system tried to contact her. The solution was to provide a backup guide. When the system window loaded, access to character profiles appeared. She looked at Raphael's profile with curiosity. Secret Service investigator Stella, 44th world, 24 years old. Member of the nobility, third son in the family. Nickname, Archbishop's puppet or Supreme Devil. And then there was a characteristic. Arrogant, selfish, and narcissistic. Rin already noticed this. The current state is anger. It's also visible. Rin became curious to check her profile. The adopted daughter of the Archbishop. Nickname Butcher, curious. This is new information. Stella was not your average tutor academy. Raven correctly said that such educators have their own mission in the mansion. Rin had her current assignments listed on her profile. The first is an investigation at the Radford mansion. The second is handing over the blood oranges to Raphael. Everything was clear with oranges. But what should she investigate in the mansion? Raphael immediately responded to these thoughts. He said that Rin needs to figure out the sinner who is interfering with the development of the mansion's ideas. They were interrupted by Sarah Rose. Her profile stated that she had hidden potential. Rin was curious what. But first they listened to why she was looking for them. Sarah Rose wanted to tell them that the carriage had broken down, and it won't be possible to take Mr. Cardrigo back. Neither of them liked the news. Rin asked for another carriage, but she was not in the mansion. Sarah Rose has already prepared a room for him. He will have to be a guest of the mansion for a while. Raphael had no choice but to agree. Sarah and Rin took charge of escorting him to the guest room. The maid thought he was a priest. Raphael decided to stick to this story. Sarah was curious because she didn't often come across priests. The guest grumpily noted that there were no priests in the lower world. Rin didn't like these arrogant antics, especially toward Sarah. She asked Raphael to watch his words. Raphael snorted that the system itself would select a suitable expression for replacement. Rin didn't know this. She decided to just smile at her Stella guide. Maybe then he will behave more softly. But he didn't like this technique. Raphael told her to smile less. Instead of grimaces, he needs what was indicated in the letter. Blood oranges. It's good that Rin prepared them. She completed this task. Even the grumpy man noted this. What remains is the investigation. Despite the fact that she is the adopted daughter of the Archbishop, Raphael was in no hurry to be nice to her. Apparently, the relationship was not very close. Rin felt something on her shoulder when Cardrigo touched her on it. Only in her room was she able to see this mark. Somehow suddenly she appeared. Rin was curious if this mark could be removed. For now I left it as is. She is completely invisible. She reloaded her profile. It loaded very slowly. Her condition was stated to be fatigue. Apparently the system froze along with it. Finally, the main task was loaded in detail. Responsibilities include protecting children and monitoring teachers. The goal is to find the attacker and destroy. Rin finished reading the end of the task and groaned. Failure in the game promised a shameful death, but victory also promised an honorable death. In any case, she died in the game. She hoped it was just another system bug. It is possible that it is not yet recognized by the system. There are still chances that things will change. Sarah Rose interrupted her thoughts. Rin was waiting for Diane. She hurried towards him. The kid was upset and needed to take medicine. Diane said that he heard about the arrival of a guest. The priest arrived at the mansion to thank Rin for her help in a matter. Diane admired his teacher. Rin would like to calm him down. In fact, one would hardly expect any gratitude from Raphael, and he is not a saint at all. Diana was tormented by her conscience. His teacher is just an angel, and he creates nothing but problems. Diane said that he would take the medicine himself, and Rin could be free. Rin disagreed with him. He was not a burden to her at all. She knew very well that the story with the Devil's Flower Garden had brought him down. Rin was ready to attack anyone who slandered or offended her child in any way. Diane stopped her. He said that he would solve his problems himself. Independence was commendable, but Rin was still worried about her baby. His stress level was through the roof. In the situation with the flower garden, Diane was made to blame. Eugenia didn't even want to hear that Vivi could have maliciously sent him to the garden, but Rin didn't think so. She believed Diane. He wouldn't have thought of going there himself. In any case, everything worked out fine. But Diane still felt guilty. Rin gave the medicine and left her baby to rest. Raphael was already waiting for her outside the door. He reproached her for being carried away by playing mother-daughter. Raphael said that the children of the mansion are like the fruits of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. She shouldn't show her emotions. The teachings ended with the appearance of Sarah. She invited them to dinner. Everyone has already gathered in the dining room. The chef prepared special delicacies for the guest. Raphael sharply refused. According to him, he did not want to desecrate the body with slop. Sarah was upset that he was fasting now. Rin was shocked by the autocorrect answer. She took Sarah Rose and hurried to join the others in the dining room, finally reproaching Raphael for his harsh statements. Naive Sarah saw him as an angel. She thought that he could heal Diane with holy power. It's just impossible because of fasting. At dinner, Rin ran into Olivia. She wanted to hand over the handkerchief that she had dropped. Olivia replied that she would not thank her. She still remembered Rin's remarks about her yesterday. Therefore, it would be easier for them to disperse to different corners of the room. To break the ice, Rin complimented their outfits. Olivia immediately looked away from the quarrel. She specially selected such paired outfits. She made the accessories herself. The compliment worked. Olivia continued the dialogue by asking for the priest. She wanted to see him at the table. She also liked his appearance. Rin upset her that the priest was on a fast. Assuming that Olivia probably rarely saw them, Rin had already seen her profile and knew that she was from the bottom. Olivia reacted rudely to this. She didn't like that suggestion. She was rude, straightforward, simple. But I didn't want to remember my past. Serge stopped these disputes, reminding them that they came here to eat. And he wants to eat. The ladies calmed down and went to the table. Lightning flashed brightly outside the window. It seemed to Rin that she managed to illuminate Raphael, who was wandering on the street. She wasn't sure about that. Raven was also upset that there would be no priest. He wanted to ask him for an amulet against the Moros. Rin realized that he lied about being Stella. She decided to check his profile. There was nothing said for Stella. He graduated from the Campanula of the 14th World. That's all. Manuel was also unhappy. He hoped to see such a distinguished guest at dinner. Cheshi supported him. He was also curious. Rin noticed that Cheshi was from Lunix of the 41st World. This is a high level, just the same elite. She had no idea about this. Marianne did not get involved in conversations. She stood up and invited Ruska to return to her chambers. The candles went out due to a draft. Marianne ordered him to freeze. Everyone was alarmed. Manuel shouted. I asked Cheshi to light them back up. The maids hurried to restore the lighting. Raven sighed. He thought a ghost was about to appear. But everything worked out. Not really, though. Rin noticed something and warned Olivia not to drink her tea. She was surprised, but listened. She poured tea on the flower. He withered. It was poison. Someone tried to poison her. Olivia yelled for everyone to stay put until the killer was found. Mariana hurried to pick up Ruska and leave. It didn't concern her. Olivia didn't want to let them go. Cheshi convinced her that it couldn't be Marianne. He saw what was in the dark. The drink was poisoned before the lights went out. Rin continued to eat as if nothing had happened. Raven lost his appetite. Manuel asked Cheshi to check his food. Olivia didn't know who to think about. It was decided to separate. Rin hurried after Mariana. There was something to be asked about what she saw in the dark. Rin immediately asked her why she rearranged the cups. Marianne replied that they were here for the sake of the children. Only their health and life are important. If the teacher does not do his job well, then it is better to let someone else replace him. Marianne thought so. Rin felt a little sad. The Radford mansion was built about 150 years ago, according to the will of the great saint. It was originally intended to raise special children. These children brought light and salvation to this world. But the heretics were not interested in them. They directed all their forces against them. Raphael decided to walk and explore this famous mansion. For some reason, he didn't like this place. Even the air here was somehow heavy. He wandered in the rain. I wondered why the Archbishop chose Rin for this task. Suddenly, someone approached him under an umbrella. It was Cheshi. He wondered why the guest was walking in the rain, offered help. Almost all the doors of the mansion were already closed. Cheshi could take him inside, Raphael agreed. It seemed like he was an ordinary teacher, but he could not see in his profile how safe he was. Raphael followed behind Cheshi. He seemed terribly familiar to him, and suddenly he heard his name from this teacher. Cheshi said that Cardrigo's son suits the priest's clothes amazingly. Raphael could not understand how he knew him. Cheshi continued. He asked if Raphael recognized him. It's been a long time, but people who receive death threats are usually remembered. Raphael's system window jumped out, sounding danger. He already remembered Cheshi. He thought he was dead. Raphael did not have time to grab the revolver. Cheshi grinned at him for relying on the system's alerts. This is what happens to those who strongly trust the guide. Now Cheshi knew for sure that Rin was sent from Stella. He took the mark from Raphael. The game became more and more interesting. The next morning, they searched for the priest throughout the mansion. He was nowhere to be found. Rin, like many, decided that he had left. Now she will have to get all the information from the manual, and not from the accompanying person. She immediately started reading the book. The game universe consisted of 44 worlds. Each had its own culture, traditions, and environment. The children of the Radford mansion were called regents. The words gate, savior, and sacrifice were also used in relation to them. Essentially, children were candidates for closing the door to another world. They filled voids, worlds without rulers. Moros are souls from voids. All worlds are connected to each other by gates. If you wish and follow the rules, you can travel between them. although ordinary people rarely leave their world. With the appearance of voids, the harmony of the worlds was disrupted. Drizzles began to appear from them, the souls of people lost behind the door to another world. The regents can enter the void and close the door from the inside. By sacrificing yourself, save your world from the Moros. At the first meeting with her pupil, Rin hastened to question him. She was interested in why he came to the mansion. Diane proudly replied that he wanted to help people. He will pass the exams with excellent marks, will be able to prevent a catastrophe and reduce the number of frosts. Rin was pleased with the student's answer. She praised him for his noble goals. She convinced him that everything would work out the way he wanted. In fact, Rin didn't want to see one of the kids sacrifice themselves. She thought about searching for more information about this. Rin heard children's laughter. It was Vivi, her headache. The profile showed that he was afraid of something, but Rin did not notice this behind him. Raven pulled her back. Rin also wanted to talk to him, but another time. Raven decided that she wanted to spend time with him. She irritably denied such thoughts and ran away. Rin decided to follow Vivi a little. He first went to the restroom, but Marianne kicked him out of there. Because the ball had to be played on the street, not there. Vivi went to the pond. He threw the ball into the water and started calling Cheshi. He tried this trick for the 100th time. Cheshi, as always, came to the rescue. As soon as the teacher stepped into the water, Vivi grabbed a stick and pushed him. Cheshi fell straight into the pond. Vivi started laughing that Cheshi was a fool. The teacher did not answer. He stood up, came out of the water, and gave him his ball. Vivi threw it in again and asked him to take it out again. Cheshi asked for Diana in the Devil's Flower Garden. Vivi still hasn't apologized to his comrade. I didn't even visit him while he was sick. Vivi didn't think he should apologize for his advice. Eugenia said that it is better to be bad, but smart. Cheshi got the ball a second time. He confirmed that life is easier this way, but you need to follow your heart. He patted the boy on the head. Chesh's hands were wet. He himself was all wet. Vivi snorted that his head was not a scarf and running. Cheshi turned to Rin, who was hiding nearby. He convinced her that the boy was not as bad as she thought. Rin nodded. Perhaps he's right. Rin had an unusual request for Cheshi. He agreed. Although later I was not happy about it. Rin wanted to go to the Devil's Flower Garden again, and for Cheshi to accompany her. He was not delighted with such an idea. Then go there again? Rin wanted to see something, and she insisted that she would go herself if Cheshi did not agree. There was nothing left with such an ultimatum. Cheshi agreed. We agreed to go there in a couple of days in the evening. 2 days have passed. Cheshi and Rin met at the garden as agreed. He grumbled that no one else would agree to this adventure. What would she do if he refused? She would probably become a beautiful flower in the Devil's Flower Garden. Rin could already joke about it now. They went into the flower garden. Everything was quiet. Cheshi said there was nothing interesting here, but Rin could argue. She wanted to touch the flowers. Cheshi did not advise doing this. They will drain your energy. But just in case something went wrong, she took Cheshi. She wanted to relive the memories that the flower garden offered her last time. Cheshi reproached her for masochism. Rin understood that from the outside it looked like that, but she still touched it. The story about 2 sisters, adopted and natural, was about her. Her mother reproached her for the death of her sister. While walking, Kane was hit by a truck. She couldn't save her. Her mother abandoned her. Her appearance now constantly reminded her of her loss. Rin woke up. An alarmed Cheshi stood over her. Rin herself was in tears. She was a little ashamed that Cheshi saw her in such a state. They left the flower garden. Rin didn't have time to say a word. Cheshi cut her off. He won't take her to the flower garden anymore. They agreed on one time. Rin was actually going to ask him to go again. Cheshi warned that such campaigns would not end well. She didn't notice the loss this time, but the energy will run out every time. Therefore, he demanded promises that Rin would not go there again. She returned to Diane's room. He was fast asleep. The fever has already begun to subside. He is on the mend. Diane was as sickly as Kane, but this time, Rin hoped that she would be able to protect, and she and Diane will have a very long history. She didn't want to feel guilty anymore. 15 days have already passed in the game, which means 2 days in the real world. However, the forced exit never worked, and not even any notifications. It was impossible to contact the support team. In the real world, she'd probably already lost her job for skipping it. What about her body? So is it lying in the corner of the room? The only joy was that Diane was on the mend. His first desire was to visit Vivi from the 3rd room. He asked Rin to accompany him. Diane didn't want to go alone. Rin promised to go, but to stand aside and not interfere. They set off immediately. Vivi answered the knock. He opened the doors curiously. The guests frightened him and hurried to close them back. From behind the door, Vivi dared to ask why Diane had come. He replied that he wanted to talk. Vivi had nothing to say. He simply asked Diane to leave. The pupil from the 7th room flatly refused to leave. He threatened that he would stand until Vivi came out. Diane kept banging on the door. Rin felt a little awkward, but she was more worried about her baby. His stress levels were skyrocketing. Eugenia arrived in time to hear the screams. She reproached Rin for the noise her pupil made. She asked them to leave. Vivi didn't want to see them. Rin retorted that Vivi's manners were also not perfect. Diane had been waiting for this meeting for a long time, and he just slammed the door in his face. She also noticed that Vivi apparently guessed what was going to be discussed. He's probably just embarrassed. Eugenia did not agree and again demanded to leave. Suddenly the door swung open and Vivi ran out of his room. Diane shouted to Rin that she needed to catch up with him. Then she grabbed the pupil and they rushed off. Running out into the yard, Diane asked to be let go. Then he can handle it on his own. Diane noticed Vivi and headed straight towards him. Rin didn't think that something terrible could happen. Confident in the safety of her pupil, she remained to watch from afar. Diane walked up to Vivi and punched him in the face. Rin did not expect this from her little angel. He returned to her and said that she could go. On the way back, they met Eugenia. She rushed to her pupil. Rin knew that Vivi was physically hurting right now, but Diane was no less worried. Sadness, anger, high levels of stress. How could her pupil cope with such a bouquet now? He told her that everything was fine. Late in the evening, another unpleasant situation was discussed in the maid's room. The rumor about how the teacher in the 7th room was doused quickly spread. Rosemary's maid saw that Melody did it. The others wondered why she did that. Melody admitted that it was in revenge for Marianne. They warned her of the consequences. They advised me to apologize if possible. After all, Marianne herself does not hold a grudge against her. All this chatter had caused Melody to delay her bath. And according to the rules of the mansion, the servants were not supposed to leave their rooms after the lights were turned off. At this time, you should go out with holy water and fresh flowers, in order to avoid poisoning from caustic air. Melody figured that the bath was not far away, and if she tried quickly, nothing would happen. But the closer the bathroom was, the worse it became. Suddenly, the same teacher from the 7th room appeared in front of her. With an axe. Rin asked her what she was doing here and why she broke the rules. Melody backed away. Rin yelled at her to stop. She swung her axe. Melody couldn't stand it and lost consciousness. And Rin cut the painting devourer. She was going through another quest. It's good that she saved Melody in time. Otherwise, she could become a victim of the painting. The next day, Rin wrote everything down in her diary. She was very tired after the night quest. But the duties of a teacher cannot be postponed until later. Diane was getting better after the Devil's Flower Garden event. He took up his studies with all diligence, although Rin did not understand what they were teaching there. In the morning, Sarah Rose did not bring fresh holy water. Rin was indignant, but Sarah explained that during the night someone had deliberately spoiled the water supply. The pastor is already addressing this problem, but her absence has already affected the air. The atmosphere was stuffy. In the hall, Rin ran into Cheshi. For the first time since their joint trip to the Devil's Flower Garden, he was interested in the latest events. I already noticed something was wrong. Rin told him about the water. The reaction was neutral. She checked her profile. Boredom. Cheshi was confident that this issue would be resolved quickly. Rin decided that Cheshi was simply oppressed by old experiences. Therefore, he lost the opportunity to express vivid emotions. She invited him to have a heart-to-heart talk, if he needs it. She knew about the alcohol stashed on the lower floors for the occasion. Cheshi liked this idea. He was also curious about her knowledge. After all, she is new to the mansion but already knows a lot. One of the servants found yesterday's axe. He shouted that this was evidence of an attacker who had spoiled the water. Melody glanced towards Rin. Rin motioned for her to remain silent. It was nonsense about the axe. Let them better mind their own business. The consul of the mansion, Schneider Fabian, came out into the hall. He asked everyone to remain calm. While the problem is being resolved, everyone should be on alert. This meant that to save water and save nerves, everyone would need to group together. Children, teachers, and servants separately. Most of the children were already gathered in one room. Now the consul invited the teachers to get together. They will be in the next one. Approaching the teacher's room, screams were heard from the nursery. The boys were arguing. The most active was Minwell. Cheshi immediately recognized his charge. He shouted that he did not want to live with such scum. Leo was outraged for the insults. Rin found it funny that there was a real kindergarten nearby. She asked Dain how he would survive this. He said that he was not comfortable, but he could handle it in a couple of days. Chex had to carry out educational measures. He explained to Minwell that his behavior could make him an enemy. He should have waited a couple of days to be safe. A doctor was called to see the children. Conrad, as always, was indifferent and lazy. He left headache medicine for everyone and asked them not to bother him anymore. But the servants did not let him leave and dragged him somewhere with them. Something seemed to Rin, but she wasn't sure of what she saw. The teacher's room was also interesting. Raven tried to sleep at first, but then jumped up. He took a seat next to Rin. It cannot be said that the teachers got along well. Gilbert had not been seen for a long time, so they pestered him with questions. Rin was finally able to look at his profile. He was an honest, emotional introvert. Sarah and Sarah Rose brought tea for the teachers. Sarah poured out sweets, and Sarah is without sugar. She offered it to Cheshi, but he said that he wanted something sweet. Raven shouted that he would drink without sugar. Having finished her tea, Sarah took a jug of water. She deliberately poured it on Cheshi. Naturally, she began to apologize and suggested that he take off his clothes to change to something else. Cheshi refused. It's okay, it will dry out. Then Sarah knocked over a cup of tea on him. Now I definitely needed to change clothes. She hurried to help, but he stopped her. Cheshi said he doesn't like being touched without permission. He will go and change his clothes himself. And he added that help in choosing clothes is also not needed. Everyone noticed that Sarah did this on purpose. Many grinned. Her plan failed. She left the room with resentment and anger. Sarah followed her. Finally, the system window lit up. A new quest for Rin is the secret of the maid Sarah. She didn't know if this task was related to the main investigation or not. The teachers began to talk about poisoning. Rin was curious how often this happened. Raven replied that often, but not with water. Usually the food is poisoned. Raven explained that there were many dissatisfied with the goals of the mansion. They consider it inhumane to sacrifice children to close voids. It is impossible to check everyone. Olivia also added that there is competition for the regency. Therefore, one of the teachers can also get rid of competitors in this way. Eugenia quipped that she probably spoke for herself. Olivia flushed. A scandal began. Cheshi has just returned. He sighed at what he saw. I only went out for 5 minutes, so to speak. Rin decided to visit Diane. The student said everything was fine. Manuel and Leo almost got into a fight. Everyone is quarreling, but overall nothing bad happened. Diane heard that the teacher's room was also uneasy. Rin replied that the adults were trying to get along. For Diane it looked doubtful. Rin finally saw her mirage. She didn't think so. In the children's room, a girl was sitting at the table. Rin asked Diane about her. But he didn't see any girls. He was worried about his teacher. Rin realized that it was a ghost. A system window with the quest Catch Up jumped out. Catching up? So you need to hurry after the girl before she disappears. Diane tried to stop Rin, but she slipped out of his hands. She came closer to the girl. Only now did she notice that in front of her was the real her, but still in childhood. Rin returned to the room. She felt overwhelmed. Rin had been exposed to air for too long. She was noticeably poisoned. Rin fell onto the couch. Olivia suggested calling Conrad. She refused. She felt better in the room. Cheshi reproached her for being out of the room for a long time. He advised her to rest until dinner. Rin said she was just thinking. Cheshi asked to share her thoughts, and Rin kept catching up with herself. She hoped to receive a buff that would increase her chances of winning by 20%. The interest rates in the system kept growing. She caught herself. The system indicated stage 3 poisoning. There must have been hallucinations, dizziness, nausea. She felt like she was losing energy. Everything went to the child. Before our eyes, the little girl began to grow and turned into an adult. The quest continued. Now Rin needed to run away from herself. The progress of poisoning grew. Rin felt the mirage stealing her energy. A 4th level of poisoning was recorded in the system. Rin was finding it hard to breathe. Her blood circulation was impaired. She could no longer run. The level of poisoning was growing, and with complete intoxication, death can occur. It was unclear to Rin why this quest was given now. Rin fell exhausted. The quest was failed. Mirage smirked that he defeated Rin so easily. She gave up too quickly. If the quest failed, a forced exit was triggered. She didn't think about it. I could have taken advantage of this opportunity earlier. Rin finally felt that she was picked up by someone's hands. The system recorded the character's death from poisoning. Cheshi was annoyed that he was late. He said that it was too early for her to die. I asked him not to upset him. He assured that everything would be fine. Rin woke up already in some room. I couldn't tell if she was in the game or not. It seems that her character died after falling down the stairs. The system showed the continuation of the quest. She went to the mirror and gasped. Her appearance was not playful but her own. Real. Rin couldn't understand anything. This is not the real world yet. Perhaps there is another bug that destroyed all appearance settings. She was offended. She worked so hard on it. And they demolished it without warning. Cheshi entered the room. I was glad that she was no longer sleeping. Rin didn't know where to hide. She screamed that she wasn't wearing makeup. He shouldn't have seen her like this. Cheshi probably saved her yesterday. But then he had already seen her new appearance. Will he recognize her now or not? Rin asked to tell her what happened. Cheshi said she fell down the stairs and lost consciousness. He brought her into the nearest room. I tried to help as much as I could. Rin began to invent that she was the new maid. Yesterday I was going to the restroom and tripped on the stairs. He doesn't remember anything else. Thankful for the help, but she needs to go. Cheshi stopped her. Having said that it would not hurt her to rest, he sat her down on the bed and touched her forehead. There was no temperature. I asked about complaints about my health. Rin was confused. A new system window popped up. Stella's former investigator is the temporary guardian of the mansion. The personality is arrogant and cruel. Rin didn't understand what it was. Nicknames. Mad Dog Executed Heretic Butcher. Who is this about? About Cheshi? Kind of weird. Cheshi remembered that her back had been hurt yesterday. He asked me to see how her wound was. He needed permission to take off his clothes. Rin was embarrassed. But Cheshi said there was blood on the clothes. You need to look at the condition of the wound, and maybe change the bandage. Rin wanted to call Conrad. Cheshi said that he was not there. She doesn't need to worry. He has basic medical knowledge. Still, she gave up. After all, it was he who applied the previous bandage. Rin let me apply ointment to my back and bandage it, asking you to be careful.